I'm Dr. Willie Spires. I'm the Dean of General Studies here at Chipola College, and I'd like to take this opportunity on the behalf of our District Board of Trustees, our President, Dr. Sarah Clemens, faculty, staff, and students to welcome you to our 8th Annual Mental Health Symposium. We're glad that you're here, and of course, if you were not here, we could not make this happen, so we appreciate all of you being here very, very much for a number of years now that you've been very supportive of this program, and I can't begin to express my gratitude for your participation. We have first thing here on the agenda here is the guest speaker, but before I do that, if I may delay that for just a moment and have all the agencies who are here to stand up and just represent your agency, who you are, and then later on we'll have you say a little bit about your agency, okay? So first of all, I have here Jackson County Health Department, Ms. Karen Edwards. Thank you for being here. Okay, we have the Bay County Vet Center, Mr. Matthew Standish, thank you. Okay, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Mrs. Thomas Brittany Borens. She's not here? Okay, all right, okay, she's not here. Okay, Florida Department of Children and Family, Ms. Kayla Williams. Jackson County Sheriff Office, Ms. Ashley Odom. She's not here, okay, all righty. Big Bend Area Health Education Center. We have anyone representing that agency? Oh, here we are. Okay, you got multiple missions today, don't you? Okay. Hope Springs Counseling, Dr. Christy Ford. Okay, all right, okay. And then setting that, Mr. Rusty Holmes. Thank you. And Project Hope, Mr. Kevin Holland, and Ms. Bunny Blackman, and Mr. David Trogdon. Okay? Okay? All right. Did I omit anyone? Okay, all right. Well, again, thank you all for being here. Okay, from the agenda here, it appears that you're going to lead us off first of all as a guest speaker, so we'll give you that opportunity, okay? And I'll get out of your way and get back in here. Okay, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you all hear me without the microphone?
You don't need it?
No, I'm pretty loud. My name is Yolanda Gillette Carlson. I am the Outreach Manager and Bilingual Health Educator at Big Bend AHEC. Who here has heard of Big Bend AHEC before? Okay, great. So we do a lot of good work in supporting healthcare providers and other community partners in the majority of the Big Bend region. My agency covers 14 counties, so Washington, Holmes, along the Gulf Coast, all the way across to Madison, Taylor, Jefferson. So it's a lot of counties. So what we are most famously known for is we are the supporters of Tobacco Free Florida's program. So anytime you hear those commercials on TV or on the radio about quitting smoking, Big Bend AHEC is the agency that does the group quit portion of those classes. And Tobacco Free Florida has several different ways in which you can get support, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but we are the group portion. And what that means is you're going to get a live person who's local. And we get a lot of support from the health department. Ms. Edwards is one of our key helpers here. So I want you to know that the reason that I've been brought here is there is a connection between mental health and the use of tobacco and also the use of drugs. I'm going to cover opioid awareness. Now, I want you to know that opioid is a crisis across the entire United States. However, the rural community is the demographic that is affected the most. And opioids is a drug that has been escalating higher and higher, the amount of people that are using it. It began as a prescription drug medication that just spiraled out of control into the crisis that we have now. There are two different types. There is the prescription type, which is how a lot of this began, and then like all things, they find a street way to tap into the demand, and that's the fentanyl. And that's the one that you hear the most about on the news, is the crisis with fentanyl. So I'm going to get into it, and you're going to notice that in my slides, I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. I have to respect time, and there's a lot of information I want to cover. But most importantly, what I want you to understand is there is a medication now that exists that is over the counter. It is no longer prescription medication, called Narcan. I'm not allowed to distribute it here, but know that there are a lot of agencies in the community, in 14 counties, that can get you a free box. You no longer have to pay $150 to get this box. My information is gonna be up here. I strongly suggest get my contact information and I'll get you boxes of Narcan if you want it. I just can't distribute it here. But what I can distribute, and I have it at the table in the other room, is I have drug disposal bags. And we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but I want everyone to grab a bag. And when you get home today, take a really close look at the medications that you have in your drug cabinet in your house. And get rid of the prescription drugs you no longer need, no longer use, specifically the pain medication that you might have hanging around from a tooth surgery that you've had. So let's get into it. My particular presentation has a lot to do with students and also healthcare providers. The one that I'm going to go through also includes community healthcare workers. Yeah, keep going. Okay, so this one right here, this is very important. As I'm sure you've heard, a lot of nonprofits work through grants. In order for us to continue providing free education in the community and also in the schools, I have to have this filled out. So if this is simpler for you than filling out the form, this would really help us to continue to keep our program. And it's how I get to count all the people that I've helped educate, and we could keep the Narcan coming into the community. So this is going to be some of the objectives that we're going to cover, but like I said, we're going to go through it quickly because I do this a lot at different universities and colleges, and I like to hit some key points. So everybody know what opioids are? We've got the prescription medication that are most commonly known, which is the hydrocodone, oxycodone, morphine, Vicodin. These are the ones that you hear a lot about. And of course, then we have the illicit one, which is the fentanyl. Okay, so since 2021, the CDC has learned that millions of Americans suffer from pain, and that is how this began to transpire into getting out of control. When the pharmaceutical companies were first approaching healthcare providers, this was promoted as a way to keep people from experiencing pain and get them to be in a comfortable state. The issue with this is that we reached a point where all we were concentrating is on keeping people pain-free, and we forgot that there is always a downside to this. In the United States, in the United States, we have a big issue. I have a dental background. I had gone to school for dental hygiene, and one of the things that we learned was we want to keep our patients out of pain as much as possible. But that comes with drugs in order for that to happen. And when Big Pharma went into the community to healthcare providers, they advertised this as a way to keep the patient pain-free, and the lie, the big lie that was told, and it ran out of control like a wildfire, was, and it's not addictive. But now we know through research and a lot of data that that was false. I want to believe that they were very excited that this medication was out there to help control pain, and I want to believe that it wasn't a bold-faced lie. It's what the research at the time was telling them. But like all good things, we learn with time. A lot of you, I can see your faces are not old enough to remember when we lived in a time in the United States that we were saying butter's bad, butter's bad, butter's bad, and we pushed margarine as an alternative, as a healthier alternative to using butter. Use that as the same concept. We've learned that butter, it's a more natural product, therefore it would definitely outweigh using a manufactured product like margarine. Unfortunately, things come out much later after it's already gone and spread like wildfire. That's what's happened with the opioid crisis. It really was first intended with good intentions to keep patients from feeling pain, and it has grown out of control. Go forward. I'm not going to read this to you. I do this a lot. So you're going to see information here that I'm not saying because I'm going to talk about the important points. Go ahead. So heroin is also a type of drug that people were overdosing on. But I will say this, because I'm giving you, there's a lot of negative slides on here. I will say that it was creeping up the numbers of people that were not just using and abusing, but also people that were losing their life. I will say that since the Narcan has become readily available and no longer requiring a prescription, and lots of nonprofits across the United States are getting their hands on it and distributing it, I can tell you that finally in 2024, I got data that says that the numbers, instead of continuing to go upward, are just finally starting to peak and go, are finally starting to turn and go downward. So it's not a huge drop yet. However, it's going in the right direction, and that's all good news because we are getting the information out there, we are educating healthcare students, healthcare providers, and every time new research comes out, grants come out, and people like my agency, we get out there to try and deliver the information. So nearly 152,000 people died from an overdose involving heroin in 2021. Now, like I said, some of these numbers have gone up, and I will say this, the problem with drug use, it's like the game whack-a-mole. So we focused a lot, I'm from New York, we focused a lot on crack addiction that was occurring during the 90s. And then, like all things, something new pops up. So we are concentrating right now on opioids. But I can tell you from working in 14 counties, there are new drugs that are popping up. So keep in mind that this is going to be a continuing education you're going to be experiencing as healthcare providers or in the healthcare field, because when we knock one out, 5 more pop up. And it's the same, I equate it to what's happening with the tobacco industry. I'm a certified trained tobacco specialist. I'm also a former smoker. And I can tell you that tobacco use, similar like drug use, we knock this out, we put laws in place to knock this out, and then something new pops up. Hence, we've got a vaping crisis. Vaping has become a big, big problem in the United States, specifically with this demographic. The youth of America, and I used to be a school nurse at a school in Tallahassee. I ran the clinic, and I had kids as young as 11 years old. A 6th grader is 11 years old, smoking up to 2 pods a day. 2 pods is equivalent to 2 packs of cigarettes. So we have a crisis, and it's the way to conquer this, the way to handle this, the way to change this is you have to get the education. You have to know what you're putting into your body. So if you're a vapor, and you don't have to raise your hand, I'm not outing anyone, I'm a former smoker, but understand that the FDA cannot keep up with the amount of product that's being put out on the market. This is also occurring with drugs, with opioids. And we have now this system where you could just get on your computer and have something mailed to your house. A lot of that is slipping through the cracks in the United States, and it's not monitored, it's not tested, so you really are playing Russian roulette with what you're putting into your body. So I'm dropping this knowledge on you because I want you to think before you go to stick something into your mouth or into your lungs, because at this stage in your life as healthcare students, you really should be one step ahead of what the general population is going through. So synthetic opioids, what makes this so profoundly dangerous, it's 50 times stronger. It's done in a lab, in either someone's basement, someone's garage, someone's got some warehouse they're doing it, and it's not regulated. So this is the type of drug that when you're hearing the news about law enforcement getting their hands on a powder and then falling ill, it's the fentanyl, it's the synthetic form. I can't understand, I don't have the ability to comprehend why someone who's selling illicit drugs is purposely trying to kill their clientele. It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't want to take time to understand it, but it's really different than other drugs that have been on the market, where this is purposely not just addicting people, but it's killing people. And it's killing people who unwillingly are taking in a drug, not knowing that that's going to be the last drug they get to take, because they just don't know what's in it. And I will tell you, if you're buying any other form of illicit drugs, meaning I know that marijuana, it's a touchy subject and there's the legality of it, whether it's in a state or it's not federal yet. But I can tell you that even if you're buying marijuana on the street, some of it is also laced with opioids. So keep that in mind if that's something that you've ever done, if it's someone who does that. It's a very dangerous rope that you are walking. So opioids were first created to help people cope with pain. The reason the addiction starts is not just because it is a highly addictive medication, but the person who starts to use it is in such incredible pain that when they take that first dose, it creates a euphoria. And when someone becomes addicted, all they're doing is chasing that very first high that they experience. And they're wanting to experience that again, but you build a tolerance with these drugs. And so you have to keep taking more and more and more until we have a crisis. So understand that it starts off innocently. I'm not talking about the illicit drug ones, I'm talking about the prescription ones. It starts off innocently. Your grandmother may have had a hip surgery that was to get her in a place where she can comfortably walk. Grandma now is addicted because it gave grandma a great feeling. It lifted her spirit, it gave her this euphoria. So the people who are addicted to opioids aren't just the people you see on the corner looking for money so they can get some fentanyl. It's happening also in suburbia. It's happening to moms who had some type of surgery. It was something that we would prescribe when you had oral surgery, you had a wisdom tooth pulled out. So it often starts innocently. So I just want to make sure that I don't want you to think that when you come across somebody who is addicted to opioids, immediately it's that they started first, looking for it on the streets. It often starts with something as innocent as trying to relieve some pain. Now, I say a lot of things about opioids that are negative, but understand there are certain chronic diseases that you have to have opioids. The best example of that is someone who has terminal cancer. The goal is to keep a person out of pain. So when you hear opioids, don't immediately assume that person's a drug addicted person. That person might have some chronic disease that requires that they take opioids under doctor's care, under the care of paying attention to the amount that they're consuming. So it's not just for illicit purposes. So a person that is misusing opioids often has signs: anxiety, poor concentration. A big tell that someone is abusing is severe constipation. So how would you know if someone's severely constipated? You'll see signs in their residence and where they're staying. There'll be a lot of Mucilex, there'll be stool softener, more than the average person suffering constipation. So that's a big telltale sign. And of course, once they've exhausted all the possibilities of getting prescription, they'll move into trying to get it off the street, and that's when you start to see treasures missing in your home. Money goes missing because they're trying to find the money to be able to purchase this, since they can no longer get it through their healthcare provider with a prescription. Once the dependency has started, there's going to be a lot of secretive movement. A lot of times they could start falling back on paying their bills, being responsible. Their hygiene starts to decline. These are severe cases, but pay attention, because it could be in your own family. And one thing, because I'm long-winded. Okay, I'm good on time. So one thing to check is during the holidays, we tend to get together with a lot of people. Sometimes it's just a summer barbecue. Next holiday, big holiday we got coming up would be Easter and then Memorial Day. These are the times that families get together that don't often see each other regularly throughout the year. That's the time you want to start paying attention who's coming to your home. Check your medicine cabinets today when you get out of here. Check your medicine cabinets, check your family's medicine cabinets, and get rid of any prescription medication that you no longer need or use or is expired. And the reason I tell you this, like I mentioned, it's not always the person you see on the street looking for drugs. It's in your own family. It's in your own circle of friends. I used to live in Houston at one time, and I had a good friend who hung out all the time. He was like a brother to me. And one day he comes into my living room after using my bathroom, which I didn't think anything of, and he says, "Hey, Yolanda, I noticed that you don't have that one hydrocodone anymore." And I was like, "Because I had a surgery and I don't need it anymore. I threw it away." And I was shocked to know that my friend was using my restroom and going through my medicine cabinet. So when I was getting certified to teach this, it was a memory that hit me, and I thought, my gosh, who else experiences this? So understand that if somebody's using drugs and they're using your restroom, or you have them in your kitchen, I know people keep their medicines in their kitchen, don't have it so accessible. Make it so it's not accessible. And if you're selling a home and you're planning to do an open house, understand that when people are going through open houses, you have a real estate agent that is sitting in one room with their face in a computer, and you've got strangers walking through your house. I'm not a fan of open houses. I don't do open houses. I've sold 5 houses, never did an open house. But you're allowing strangers to come into your house. And one of the things that these folks do when they are avid drug users, when they're addicted, is they go to where all these signs are, and they're going through your bathroom, and they're going through your medicine cabinets, they're going through your drawers, looking for the prescription medication. So the more you know. Okay, so this map shows you there is something called the Good Samaritan Law. And the Good Samaritan Law, I can't get into it because, number one, I don't have a law degree. But I will tell you, I really, really hope you will Google it, look it up, check it out, the law in the state of Florida. Good Samaritan Law was put into place for many different reasons. One of them is you could be in a situation when you're at a party and you're using, and you're with somebody that person's also using, but that person now has gone into an overdose state. you are morally and now legally obligated to get help for them. This also applies to healthcare providers. If you are in the healthcare field and you are out in the world and someone is actively in distress, as a healthcare provider of any sort, you have a moral and legal obligation to help them. The 911, Good Samaritan 911 law was put into place to also protect you, because we live in a society where people want to sue you for everything. You, in good faith, are trying to save a person's life. That person cannot turn around and sue you. There is a law in the books in the state of Florida to protect you. And the naloxone law is kind of the same idea. If you try to save somebody's life with the medicine, naloxone is the medication, Narcan is the brand, that person is the less than 1% person that has some allergy to something in there, which is very rare. But I will tell you that that law protects you. You were in good faith trying to save that person's life, so you're protected under that law. So look up that law, especially for those of you that I see in white that you're in the healthcare field. Look it up. It will be beneficial for you to learn this. Now, I'm a Hispanic woman. We have different feelings about law enforcement in my community. I personally don't, but in the community, brown and black people have a little bit of a fear of calling law enforcement. Let me explain something, because when you're reading about this law, it's going to say you're protected under the law. But I will tell you, I work with law enforcement, I work with emergency room doctors. Not every law enforcement person knows all the laws. There's a lot of laws on the books. So give them grace, have patience, and know that as long as you have followed the law, and the law is written, you will be protected. I'm not saying you won't get arrested, but you will be released once it is recognized that you fall under the protection of the Good Samaritan law and the naloxone law. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. Okay, we're going to keep moving. I'm going to skip and get right to the meat of this. I want to get into what you can do. So, although I cannot give you the Narcan, I will tell you, contact me and I will make sure you get a box. This is what it looks like. This is a box of Narcan. They come in different sizes. This is the most popular brand that's going around now under the grant that exists to get it to the community for free. Like I mentioned before, Narcan is the brand, just like Tylenol is the brand, but the medication is naloxone. Just like Tylenol, the medication is acetaminophen, okay? You can get your hands on a box of naloxone, which I highly recommend that you have one in your car and on your person if you are in an area where this could be something you encounter. You might encounter someone who uses, or you might encounter people you work with in the community that overdose. The goal of this is to get it in the hands of every single resident in the United States so that you can save a life. We have young people dying because of sheer stupidity. I was young once. I did a lot of stupid things that could have ended my life. It would be a shame because somebody is thinking they're smoking marijuana that they bought from their cousin, Herbie Herb, and instead that marijuana is laced with a fentanyl. It's a shame, and we don't want to see this happening. Too many young people are losing their lives, or too many people who have had a bad moment in their life, their life is ending unnecessarily, especially when this is available. So this is how you use it. Each box has, this is what it looks like, the medication. Each box comes with 2 of these. One of these has 4 milligrams of the medicine to save a life. Now, I'm not going to use it, but I have a sample one that is empty. When you take it out of the container, this is what it looks like. It looks like a nasal spray. But this is not nasal spray like you use when you have congestion, where you prime it first to get the medication up and ready to go. If you prime this, you will have wasted the medicine. It has only 1 dose, 4 milligrams. So you take it, you put it between your fingers. You can keep going until you see the picture of this. You take it between your fingers, you put it up to one nostril, all the way up till your knuckles touch your nostrils, and then you depress the plunger all the way. Within 2 to 3 minutes, that person who is in an overdose state, and I went by without telling you what to look for. I'll get back to that. Within 2 to 3 minutes, that person who's in an overdose state should wake up. If they do not wake up within 2 to 3 minutes, then you can give the second dose. So that will be a total of 8 milligrams. The second dose, which will again look like this, exactly the same, then you put it in the next nostril and you shoot it up all the way into their nose. In the process of you doing this, you should have already called 911 or yelled at someone, call 911, we're in such and such building, I'm in such and such place, so that you're giving EMS all of the opportunities to get to you quickly. So if you are alone with the person, call 911 first and then administer this. But if you're with someone, get to it immediately. You might have to give CPR, check that there's nothing in their mouth, and then get this medication into them. Hopefully 911 will get there soon. And the reason it's so important that 911 gets called is because this medication is short acting. It lasts on average 60 to 90 minutes. And then that, because it's an antagonist to the opioid that's sitting on the brain receptor. What will happen is that person will go back and slip into a coma if they don't get to a hospital ASAP. So it is very important. This is not something that you could use alone. So if you are a user, one of the latest campaigns is don't use alone. Don't use alone. Because if you use it alone, and you have a box of this, it's going to serve you no good. You can't save your own life. This is for someone else to save a life. So please keep that in mind. Share that. Don't use alone. Don't use alone. You have to be with someone so they can save your life. Okay, any questions before I go any further regarding the naloxone, how to administer it? Okay, what you should look for, you can keep going. What you should look for is when you come across somebody, they're going to have slowed breathing or no breathing. You might see the lips turning blue, the fingernails turn blue. These are signs that that person is lacking oxygen and they're slipping into a coma. You should first shout the person's name. If you know him, give him a good shake. If none of that is working, give them a sternal rub. Take your knuckles, put it on their bare chest, and push really hard. If you do it to yourself, it's not comfortable. And a person who might be just passed out drunk will respond. But a person who's overdosing on the drug will not respond. And I will tell you, the greatest thing about this medication, which is why we want to get it out to everyone, is it doesn't have an adverse effect if someone has given it to you and you're not overdosed on opioids. You might be profoundly drunk. You might be passing out because of another drug. If this is given to someone who is not using an opioid, it will not harm them, but it won't help them either. So if they're overdosing on something else, this will not save their life. This is only to save someone overdosing on opioids. Okay, storage. Let's get into that quickly. I'm almost done, sorry. Okay, so I have bags in the other room because I can't give you the Narcan. This bag is a drug disposal bag. So you open it up, you pop in the pills that you have, open up the container, throw it in here. You fill it up to the line that it tells you with water. You seal it shut, you give it a good shake, and this will organically start to break down the medication, and then you can throw it in the trash can. And this entire bag will eventually become one with the ground because the entire thing is biodegradable. There are many different options. If you don't want to use this, it's too expensive. Your other option is get a can of coffee, an old can, or a laundry detergent, fill it with dirt, mud, kitty litter, something that's unpalatable, and then throw in the pills, fill it up with water, seal it shut. I duct tape it closed, and I write poison or veneno in Spanish. If you are in a neighborhood where drug use is very prevalent and people are digging through your garbage, this isn't going to be the safest thing. I've seen and heard of situations where drug users, they don't care there's kitty litter. This is going to break it down. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about before I go, and I'm sorry that I had a lot of information to give you, is I work, can you go to the slide that has tobacco? So because I also work with Tobacco Free Florida, these things fall hand in hand with mental health, smoking and drug use. Right now, Tobacco Free Florida is offering for the first time an incentive that goes all the way through the month of June. We never get this. So I implore you to share this information. And there are flyers on the table out there along with the deterra bags, the drug disposal bags. We are giving up to a $125 Walmart gift card if you are a smoker wanting to learn on how to get to the point where you quit. And Ms. Edwards can help you here. She's got the information as well. She's your local contact. If you join our class, you don't even have to go in person. We could do the class virtually. You could join one of my classes. But I will tell you, this is a great incentive because you might not be ready to quit, and I mean all tobacco products, chewing, smoking, cigars, hookah, vaping, all of it. We can help you at least get the mindset ready for when you're actually truly prepared to quit, and we're gonna give you the tools and information to get to that point. I'm a former smoker. I started smoking at 11 years old. I quit smoking at 29. I'm almost 56. I've been smoke-free for that long. You can do this. You have to first flip your switch and make the decision. I was talking to my friend Matt here, and he said the same thing. He goes, I had all the information. I had the patches and everything. I had to first make the decision here. This is a great incentive, up to $125. And the reason I say up to $125, you got to show up to all 4 classes to get the full $125. If you come to one, you're going to get $25. So I highly recommend it because if you join virtually, we're going to mail it to you. And if you have any questions, my information is right there. Take it down, go to our website. I ask you, especially if you're in healthcare, please go to our website, go to bigbendahec.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, because that's where you're going to get the latest information of what we got going on and how we support the healthcare community. Plus, whenever I have a community partner that sends me information that they feel is important to disseminate to the community, I post it for them. So please follow Big Bend AHEC. We are a great resource for you when you're working out in the world. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
If I could ask that everybody turn down their cell phones or turn them off while they're presenting. And if you need to step out, please wait until after the presentation is given, as to give respect to the person that is up here presenting. We appreciate that. Our first student will be Ms. Kimberly Bellarda. She is going to talk about the introduction of psychopathology of the criminal mind. The criminal person that she was going to talk about is Ed Gein. So if you would please welcome her with a round of applause.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Kimberly Bellarda, and today I will be presenting on the psychopathology of the criminal mind of famous serial killer Ed Gein. Okay, let's begin by reviewing his criminal history and background. Ed Gein was born in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and he was arrested at 51 years old. He was found guilty for the murder of Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan. Their cases were very gruesome and disturbing, as Gein dismembered their bodies and stored their organs around his property. From a psychological standpoint, Gein was diagnosed with schizophrenia and declared legally insane. His behavior was shaped by a childhood filled with abuse, isolation, and severe mental illness. Two key theorists provide insight to Gein's mind. Dr. Robert D. Hare, who developed the Hare Psychopathies Checklist Revised, helped differentiate psychopathy from psychosis. His tool is instrumental in evaluating whether individuals like Gein are psychopaths. John E. Douglas, a pioneer in criminal profiling and the founder of the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. He used psychological profiling to understand how Gein's mental state contributed to his crimes. Okay, to understand the criminal mind, we must also understand the brain's role in behavior. The frontal lobe is involved in decision-making and personality. It is often impaired in individuals with antisocial or violent tendencies. The temporal lobe is related to memory and auditory processing. The parietal lobe helps interpret spatial relationships and may influence how people perceive their environment. The occipital lobe is linked to vision, and lastly, the cerebellum is primarily responsible for coordination and may contribute to emotional regulation. This slide outlines Ed Gein's criminal history, psychological profile, and the disturbing actions tied to his crimes. We see that Gein murdered Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan and was also involved in grave robbing. These crimes were committed in the 1950s and uncovered after authorities investigated a missing person case. Gein was diagnosed with schizophrenia and also deemed legally insane. In my view, Ed Gein's case shows how untreated mental illness and trauma can lead to devastating outcomes. His actions, while horrifying, stem from psychosis, not simply evil intent. It reminds us how important early mental health support is, especially for those isolated or showing signs of severe distress. Many psychologists believe Ed Gein's criminal behavior can be traced back to his early life. First, childhood trauma played a significant role. His father was an alcoholic and very abusive, while his mother was overbearing and isolated him from society. Second, he likely suffered from an attachment disorder, forming an intense and unhealthy emotional bond with his mother. It is likely the reason why he targeted his victims who resembled her. Third, schizophrenia. He experienced hallucinations and would sometimes burst in random laughter as he would hear voices in his head. Without intervention, Guy's mental health would likely have continued to deteriorate. Had he not been institutionalized, Guy may have experienced increasingly severe hallucinations and further impairment in his cognitive processing. The deeper he fell into psychosis, the more horrific his actions became. Ed Gein's crimes were particularly haunting due to the fates of his victims. In fact, his behavior actually inspired movies such as The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Leatherface. Mary Hogan, a 50-year-old tavern owner, mysteriously disappeared. Blood was found at the scene, and it was later discovered that she had been shot and dismembered by Gein. Her body parts were recovered from his home. Bernice Worden, a 58-year-old hardware store owner, was lured by Gein to his property, robbed, and shot. When investigators searched his house, they discovered her decapitated with the body with her head in a paper sack. In fact, her body was actually hanging from the ceiling. Organs were stored in the refrigerator, and chairs were upholstered with human skin. These victims represent the tragic results of a deeply disturbed mind left untreated. Ed Gein's case shows how severe mental illness and childhood trauma can lead to tragic and violent outcomes. This case reminds us why early mental health care and support are so important, not only for individuals, but for the safety of ourselves and society. Thank you.
Do you all have any questions for Kimberly? Any questions? Thank you, Kimberly. You're welcome. Okay, very good. Good job. You good?
Hello, my name is Gwendolyn Berlin, and I'm presenting on dementia and Alzheimer's in older adults. The reason I chose this subject is because hardly anyone wants to speak about something so morbid. With the growing population of older adults, it is very prevalent and sadly very dangerous to the older population. So as you see, you can keep yourself healthy. Doctors recommend working out, eating healthy, cutting sugar, cutting sodium, carbohydrates, things like that. But if you're inheriting it from a family member, you might not know it, and you can still get it due to an injury or many other reasons. It is a very debilitating disease. It takes away your mental functions and makes you a shell of yourself. You could be vibrant in your 50s and in a wheelchair in a nursing home in your 80s. Something to note on here is sundowning, and that's where the client loses track of time and reasoning, often seeing things that aren't there or seeing darkness, talking to figures that aren't there in their head. And when they come out of the fugue, which is a mental state of not being fully there, they don't know what they did. This case study was particularly sad because this is a form of early dementia and Alzheimer's. So the client was a 55-year-old woman who presented with cognitive memory decline, but she had a long list of other physical issues. She had Hashimoto's disease, anemia, migraines, edema, swelling of the brain, and many other things. She would be able to tell time with no problem, but she would walk into walls and not be able to walk downstairs and fall at random. So she was tested for many things and diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia and early Alzheimer's, but they realized she didn't have that when they tested her again. So the MRI represented there is not her brain, but a similar situation to how the brain will shrink when some people have dementia. And 5 years later, when they tested her, she was so bad, She could not hold a pencil, a comb, a spoon, or feed herself. She was diagnosed with bilateral atrophy on top of that, and that means you can't use your limbs. They don't work when your brain tells them to do something. And she was pretty much paralyzed. Now this is a chart with statistics. It's not very pleasant statistics, but the rates of dementia are going up as people age. So 40 million people worldwide currently is expected to rise to 131 million people as the population ages all around the world. America currently has 5.4 million people suffering with dementia. 5 to 10% of people over 65 can get it, but the most common group of people to get it are 85 or older, and they have a 50% chance. This severe stage leads to death in nursing homes usually because they can't take care of themselves. This is a simple video I found online with the easiest explanation of what the disease does.
Dementia is a general term that describes the loss of the ability to think, remember, and reason. People with dementia have difficulty completing everyday activities, and symptoms worsen over time. Dementia happens when nerve cells in the brain stop working properly. There are many types of dementia. Some types include Alzheimer's disease, frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, and vascular dementia. Some people may have changes in their brain caused by more than one type of dementia. The risk of developing dementia increases as individuals grow older. Most people with dementia are age 65 or older, and research shows that about 1 in 3 people age 85 or older in the United States may have some form of dementia. Still, dementia is not a normal part of aging. Not everyone develops it as they grow older. Scientists are working to discover why some individuals develop dementia and others don't. While healthy lifestyle approaches, such as regular exercise, may help some people reduce their risk of developing dementia, more research is needed. Dementia can cause problems with thinking, memory, and behavior. Some people may also have trouble controlling their emotions and may experience changes in their personality and movements. Symptoms can vary depending on the type of dementia, but common signs include difficulty understanding or expressing thoughts, memory loss and confusion, getting lost in a familiar place, trouble handling money, or losing balance. However, these symptoms don't always mean someone has dementia. Dementia-like symptoms may be caused by depression, side effects from medication, vitamin deficiencies, or other medical conditions. Talk with your doctor if you have concerns about your ability to clearly think, learn, or remember, or if you notice changes in your personality or movements. Doctors can help determine whether your symptoms are caused by dementia or another health condition. If you do have dementia, obtaining an early and accurate diagnosis can help you manage the disease through potential treatment options and help you plan for the future. Learn more at alzheimers.gov.
So that was a simple video describing the basics of dementia. This slide here are charts representing dementia in the United States and the dementia that will be growing in Europe, specifically the UK. So as mentioned in the video, there are many types of dementia. It is caused by receptors being blocked, forming into clumps, and the cells start dying off. There's also childhood dementia, which is rarer, but it takes a normal functioning kid and brings them back to infanthood, meaning they're back in diapers, they can't feed themselves, they can't crawl, they can't do anything. The most common form is Alzheimer's. This affects 78% of people. Lewy body is the kind that Robin Williams had, and it affects your memory and your function so bad you can't do anything, and it's caused by a protein attacking the cells over time. Frontotemporal dementia is caused by brain damage, such as a car accident or a head injury, and can be some of the worst symptoms. Mixed dementia is a combination of 2 or more types, which can have any of the symptoms or all the symptoms. So stage 1 is relatively mild. According to the internet, there's not usually knowledge that you have dementia at this point. You just might think, I'm getting a little forgetful. Stage 2 is light memory loss. You can have spatial issues like walking into things or tripping on air, starting to lose items like your keys every single day of the week, forgetting to pay your bills or forgetting what you purchased so you might buy more or start hoarding items. And you could still be around people and function such as work. Stage 3 is getting lost while driving or in a new place. You start not understanding what you're reading, memory loss with random items or family members starts. You cannot concentrate, and complex tasks are kind of hard to do. Losing use of words or names. They will notice at work that you're not getting your stuff done on time, and it can cause anxiety, anger, or frustration because the person can't do the things they used to be able to, and they lash out at people. Stage 4 is when it starts getting bad. It's the start of the loss of the motor skills and basic functions. This can include having issues eating, breathing, bathing, paying bills, working, using the bathroom, that kind of thing. Stage 5, moderately severe decline. They will need assistance with tasks most time. They have severe memory loss with most things. Their common sense and their decision-making in general tends to get worse. And a lot of times what happens is people in their family will get a power of attorney to control their money and either use their money or have to pay their bills and stuff for them. They can also become childlike again and get attached to inanimate objects like stuffed animals, blankets, toys, that kind of thing, because their memory starts deleting the current stuff and brings them back 40, 50 years ago. Sleep-related issues and nightmares are also common at this stage, and they can lash out in anger if you try to say, well, let's go do this, let's go to the bathroom, let's try this. And they go, leave me alone, you don't know anything about me, what am I doing? And they can still remember names of people they know and love to a point, but they start declining with that. Stage 6 is considered severe. This is where people can really end up in a nursing home because their mental decline has proceeded so far, it's irreversible. And they can revert to childlike stages or go, well, my cousin John back in 1952 said this, but if you ask them what was for breakfast, they'll say, I don't know. Stage 7 is the most severe, and most times they end up in a nursing home or group home facility and unfortunately end up dying there because they lack control of what they're doing and tend to give up living if they are conscious at all of what they're doing. Now this is a sample of a brain. That's a normal one on the left, a relatively normal one, and that's Alzheimer's dementia brain on the right. The red signifies where the brain starts shrinking and disappearing. Now, brain injuries or tumors were the most common cause of dementia in young people. Neurodegenerative dementia, like Alzheimer's or Lewy body, were most common in older adults. The recent decades have seen advancements in dementia research from molecular neuroimaging to novel biomarkers. They're working on stem cell research, but that's a long process. Another one is antisense oligonucleotide. The purpose is to fight the irritation in the brain because it makes the brain swell. And then there was a scholarly article, they tested 1,661 people, men and women, and most of the women said they probably wouldn't be able to take care of themselves if they got dementia because, one, the cost, and two, if you don't remember what you're doing, unfortunately, you can't take care of yourself. My personal opinion on dementia is it is a life stealer. It takes you from a former healthy version of yourself to this version that can't really do anything, or you're more childlike, or you can't focus or function, and it can make people lash out and get angry. Because when you get angry, if you couldn't do something you wanted to, and as stated before, stage 7 is usually the stage where people start dying from it because their bodies just give out.
Thank you. Hold on. Thank you, Gwen. Does anybody have any questions for Gwen regarding dementia? No? You have, Gwen?
Yeah, the slide that you have up there gives a comparison,
Comparison.
US versus specifically England. And way back here, we can't see what the comparison is. Could you describe to us, are we having more dementia in the United States, less dementia in the United States? Is it a trend that is, getting better for us because we're treating it, so forth, so on? Any comments on that?
Sure. The answer is, unfortunately, dementia is growing steadily in both places. So the longest bar on the slide on the left chart is for the United States. And that projects how many people are going to end up with it in the near future. The one on the right, if you can see the darker green bars, that's how many people are projected to get it in the near future. And the ones with the teal colored ones are the ones that currently have it in England right now. So unfortunately, it's a widespread thing and it doesn't really get better because the research is expensive and takes a long time to do with trials.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good job. Next, we will have Mr. Eric Brunson. He will be informing you all about internet gaming disorder.
My name is Eric Brunson, and I chose internet gaming disorder because, a lot of young kids are experiencing, they're playing video games at such a young age nowadays, and if this is a mental health problem, then it needs to be attacked right now. So, the case study I chose was a 28-year-old man experienced this problem in under a year. He was experiencing anxiety disorder playing video games on the network with the chief complaint that he cannot sleep. He experienced problems in his daily life and social interaction. He wasn't talking to his family. He wasn't coming outside of his room playing video games. It disrupted daily activities like eating, bathing, and providing for his family. He had trouble making choices and concentrating. So the psychology theorists were Mark D. Griffiths and Daria J. Kuss. Griffith identified that assessing online gambling addiction in children and adolescents, prevention efforts must be established. He identified that target adolescents will have their first experience with addictive substances and behaviors. He also identified from a long-term perspective a dysfunctional coping style that may limit the adolescent from developing a protective way to cope. So the objective was to estimate the global prevalence of IGD among adolescents and young adults, and to identify potential risk factors for IGD in this group, offering guidance for practitioners in developing intervention and treatment strategies. The method they used was study, perform systematic reviews, and meta-analysis following the guidelines set by the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, PRISMA. The result was the meta-analysis on prevalence included 407,620 participants from 155 studies across 33 countries. The pooled prevalence among AYAs was 9.9%, including 8.8% among adolescents and 10.4% among young adults. This study reveals that the global prevalence of internet gaming disorder and among adolescents and young adults is 9.9%, 8.8% of adolescents affected, and 10.4% among young adults. Various factors include stress, excessive gaming time, family issues, poor academic performance, experiences of being bullied, engaging in bully behavior, interpersonal difficulties, hyperactivity and inattention, anxiety, depression, emotional distress, and low self-esteem. These may contribute to the risk of developing IGD in this age group. According to Coast and Lopez Fernandez, across the United States and Europe, internet addiction treatment is not funded by the government, often leaving individuals seeking help either for their primary disorders or through private organizations, although new clinical centers that specialize in treating internet use-related problems are being developed. The South Korean government funded National Information Society Agency that has opened the first addiction prevention counseling center worldwide and has since developed large-scale projects including prevention, training, counseling, treatment, and policy formulation to tackle the pervasive problem of technology overuse. So some therapeutic treatments were anti-stress medication like bupropion, CBT group therapy, family therapy, eclectic psychotherapy intervention, self-discovery camp, and MMORPG speaking and writing course general education. So this was really being seen as stress or anxiety instead of what it is like gaming. They couldn't really, assess it because it's not being seen right now.
Do you know what MMORPG speaking is?
Yes, that is role-playing games. So like you're, I would say like being a knight trying to fight, dragons and stuff and like that. That's the kind of games those are.
Okay.
So, in my personal opinion, I think I didn't know that this condition was as serious as it is because, everybody knows that somebody's playing a video game, I think South Korea has really done a good job in trying to help everyone who suffers from this condition. Since this condition is fairly new, it has limited research on it, so it's been hard to work with. I think any kind of therapy is best to help with this condition. I personally don't think you should seek medical or medicine because, you don't want to get addicted to medicine over like stress. But unless it is very, very hard or, very extreme difficulty or measures, I think since it is fairly new, there needs to be more research put into it, especially because the younger generations are growing up playing video games and watching other people play video games all the time. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Eric?
Did you notice any games that were specifically more addicting than others? Like were the MMOs more addicting than first-person shooters or like Candy Crush or?
I think what it said was online games usually were the most games that were set, but any game like you see like in winning, you get experience that that winning, I guess, the emotion of when you win. That's what was really the problem. Also, I saw something earlier was talking about that they also kind of like treat it with gambling addiction, but this is more of, well, you're winning, most of the time you're going to win in a game versus gambling addiction, which is going to be like a chance or whatever. So yeah, I would say any kind of like online game where you get that win is really where it's like more addictive than. But like I said, I don't really know like what game type would be, but that win is what it said would be the main problem.
Okay.
You said on there South Korea's done a really good job.
Yes.
What are they doing?
They're building like they're assessing like therapy for them, and I think they said they're setting up like programs in South Korea about like therapy and stuff like that.
So mainly therapy.
Yeah, mainly therapy. Anybody else?
I just have a comment. One of the positive things, and the only positive thing that I'm aware of that's coming out of folks like this are our medical students that are now your age and, you know, young medical students having played all of these games as experts. We are now finding that they are excellent, better at robotic surgery than their peers who may not be experts in game usage. So, you know, that's about the only positive twist I could
Yeah, I think that comes from
say
like
on that. But
focusing on, you know, the controls of the
That's
game.
right.
Yep. But yeah, there's some positives to gaming, but like the guy in the case study, I think he was averaging like 14 hours a day playing video games. So he's spending most of his day, over half his day, playing video games. So yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, so our next presenter will be Mr. Leo Faust. He will be speaking on pathological gambling.
So I am Leo Faust, and I did decide to present on pathological gambling. So the case study I chose was on a young man from India who began online gambling after seeing an online ad saying that he could win big off of a small investment. His bet started out at just 15 rupees a game, which is the Indian currency, which is equated to about 17 cents in America. And over the days and weeks and months, worked his way up to $50 a bet. He's playing multiple hours a day, every day. And eventually one day he decided to bet all of his money on one bet, and that was about 1.5 million rupees, which equates to about $17,000. And of course he lost, and he was in crippling debt. But despite being in that debt, he would ask his friends and family for more money, not to pay off his debt, but to continue gambling. Eventually his father found out and actually paid off that debt for him. The young man promised to never gamble again, but as a lot of pathological gamblers do, he ended up returning to gambling, again in crippling debt. His father paid that off, but he began to become depressed and even suicidal, believing he was only good for gambling. And at that point, he did seek out help. So what they decided to do first was give him 150 milligrams of fluvaxamine. Fluvaxamine is a medicine used to combat impulsive things. And naltrexone, 50 milligrams of that, to use to stop his relapse, or a possible relapse. And then he was given individual psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is the traditional therapy where it's one-on-one. They want to see how you're feeling. He was also given cognitive behavioral therapy, trying to change his mindset away from the fact that he is, quote unquote, only good for gambling. And he was also given contingency management, which is pretty much if he ever did feel the need to relapse, that he would have something else to turn his mind to besides that. So the first person to kind of recognize pathological gambling was a German psychiatrist named Emil Kraepelin. Kraepelin was pretty well known as a pioneer in psychology because he did create the first system to properly classify a lot of the illnesses. So one of his big accomplishments was differentiating schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, because at the time they had very similar symptoms. So without a system, it was almost impossible to differentiate them. But through his studies, he found out that bipolar disorder was something that occurred in episodes, while schizophrenia was something that pretty much stayed with you all the time and just got worsened over time. And using that system, he was able to see that there were a bunch of diseases or disorders that were linked to impulses. And he noted that gambling was something that could become an addiction due to the impulses. So pathological gambling is most common in males ages 20 to 40. There isn't a set reason for this, but most people believe that males, especially teens, adolescents, are exposed to gambling. Fun fact, like the most common gamblers are actually like 11-year-old boys. It's like said that boys start gambling at 11 years old. About 72% of boys start gambling at 11 years old, and that's probably what leads to the very big amount of pathological gamblers in their 20s and 30s. So in comparing the United States and China in terms of the number of gamblers, it's actually surprising China has 2 to 3 more % of gamblers as compared to us, despite gambling being mostly banned in the country. There's not really a reason that can be said for this. I do believe personally that it's because that in China there's more of a, I guess, there's a belief that somebody can be lucky, or like I can be lucky, more lucky than everybody else in the room. Like that's something they believe in China. There are multiple types of treatment of pathological gambling. The first one being a psychoanalytic and psychodynamic treatment, which I did talk about, is the one-on-one, trying to figure out the root cause of the gambling. So this is very useful if you have a different disorder that caused you to be a pathological gambler. For example, if somebody was a masochist and they gambled a bunch because they like to lose, through this one-on-one therapy you could figure that out and try to fix that. Behavioral treatment is basically like conditioning treatment. You would try to attach bad feelings and thoughts to gambling, and the good feelings and good thoughts to anything besides gambling to kind of stray them away from that. Cognitive treatments stems from the belief that somebody might believe that they are luckier than somebody else, or somebody might have a lucky rabbit's foot, or they just don't have an understanding that at its root gambling isn't fair. So cognitive treatments are what that is used for. Pharmacotherapy is, like I mentioned before, just the use of different types of medicine. There's no specific medicine to combat pathological gambling, but you can use things to stop impulses, stop relapse, limit things like dopamine you get from gambling, things like that they recommend. Addiction-based and multimodal treatments are just the use of multiple different types of therapy. And self-help is, you buy things like books to figure out how to combat it, or even go to self-help meetings. So these are the 9 main symptoms of anybody who might be a pathological gambler. First one being preoccupied with gambling, such as constantly planning gambling activities and how to get more gambling money. Pretty much gambling being your first priority. Then there's needing to gamble with increasing amounts of money to get the same thrill, which we did see in that case study because he did bet all of his money to get that thrill. Trying to control, cut back, or stop gambling without success. Feeling restless or irritable when you try to cut down on gambling. Gambling to escape problems or relieve feelings of helplessness, guilt, anxiety, and depression. So kind of stress gambling. Trying to get back lost money by gambling more, also called chasing losses. Lying to family members or others to hide the extent of your gambling. Risking or losing important relationships, a job, or school or work opportunities because of gambling. And asking others to bail you out of financial troubles because of gambling money away. This is pretty much the table that they use to identify pathological gamblers. If you have 5 out of these 9 symptoms, they say you're a pathological gambler. So I personally believe that pathological gambling is far more serious than it's advertised. If you take kind of that symptom slide and you take out gambling and you put in drug use, it's pretty much the same thing. And it's just as dangerous and can ruin your life in the same way. So yeah, I do think it's more dangerous to advertise. I do think the most effective type of treatment would be the addiction-based or the multimodal treatment, because you do get kind of the best of all worlds. But I did see that pharmacotherapy actually has pretty effective rates. There's pretty much every case that I've seen, once they get on whatever medicine that they're put on, they become abstinent after just a few weeks. And yeah, I think this is something that we should at least make aware of for the adolescents and the younger ones, because as I said, a lot of young men like teenagers, do gamble way more than we probably realize. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you feel like,
Y'all stop it.
do you feel like day trading or investing in stocks is a form of gambling?
I do think so.
Oh.
Because the root of, I guess, pathological gambling, kind of in the same way that Eric mentioned, is that when people start gambling, they win. The first time they win big, usually off a small investment, so they kind of do chase that same feeling. So if you do invest in stocks, and then you do win or you do make a lot of money, of course people are going to have that same feeling. So yes, I do believe that. Any more questions?
No? All right. Thank you.
Good job, Laura.
All right, our next presenter will be Mr. Jackson Welch. He will be talking about narcissistic personality disorder. Okay.
Good afternoon, my name is Jackson Welch. I'm from Malone. I'm doing a presentation on narcissistic personality disorder. So the case study that I picked, narcissistic personality disorder is defined in DSM-5 in terms of repeated patterns of grandiosity in thought or behavior, need for admiration, and lack of empathy towards other people. Among those studied, Mr. A worked at a law firm. He had been forced off of his college basketball team because he had struggled, he had not fulfilled his goals, and he struggled with emptiness and identity issues, so he turned to drugs, mainly marijuana. So struggling between motivation and complacency, Mr. A put on many faces in his day-to-day life, be it with family, be it with his job. He just maintained a mask of like, he kept going. He avoided conflict and gained approval, just tried to move along. Another patient, Mr. B, showed opposite symptoms. He was a self-proclaimed arrogant person with high aspirations. He was a boastful, the typical narcissist archetype. Mr. B confessed, however, after only 2 sessions of therapy, that he had a crippling sense of insecurity, shame, and rejection sensitivity in his life. So he had an outward shield, kind of, about his personality, but really on the inside, he was just so worried about not meeting up to his own goals or society's goals they had for him. The theorists, Igor Weinberg and Elsa Roningstam, they did that case study, and they established that NPD starts with extreme pressures put on subjects and fear of not living up to certain preset goals or expectations. So I know everybody in here has made goals for themselves, and sometimes you just don't meet them. Well, narcissists, they take that and they just let it build up and it crushes them. And then societal goals put on people is, again, that's a big one. This fear leads to subjects having low self-esteem, along with little to no motivation in their daily lives. The most accurate way to assess if someone has NPD is a mixture of categorical and dimensional models. Dimensional sets strict parameters. It's like a checklist. If you have this, you are a narcissist. Categorical is more like you see it, you read them, you read the room, and if they act like a narcissist, you call them a narcissist. Statistics, which gender? Males are up to 75% of all narcissistic cases. And I don't know if that's like from business, from sports, like I really don't know what causes that. It didn't really say. It just said that men had a much more prevalent, obviously, cases. USA, I picked China for the other country. Most other countries, it was around 4 to 5%. So it is a global issue, a global thing. The issue with it though is that most people don't seek help and they don't self-diagnose and call themselves narcissists. So there's really many more people than what statistics show. Next. Therapeutic treatment options are limited and tricky because, like I said, they just don't want the help. 64% drop out from psychotherapy and cognitive behavioral therapy sessions. Even when they do accept treatment, not much can be done apart from general therapy. And another issue is like everyone in their lives, they show, we'll get to the symptoms in a minute to see what I'm talking about, but everyone shows particular traits of narcissists, just not to that degree. Everyone has a degree of like self-preservation and how they go about their daily lives. So a lot of people are just like, well, I'll figure it out, and then they either don't figure it out or they try to figure it out and fail, and they're too embarrassed to admit it. So that's why there's not very effective ways to deal with it. Symptoms and physical signs. Individuals with NPD often exhibit a need for a perfect impression on others. They show fluid adaptability, which results in theatrical and performative actions. Often these actions are out of character. Now about the fluid adaptability, they show performance and they're like boastful out and about, but they're also internal and they can avoid work and avoid the spotlight because of their insecurities. Attempting to make ideal connections, subjects can express a haughty demeanor to boast and impress. On the other hand, they can present themselves as extremely vulnerable. The vulnerable state, or victim mentality, is often used when patients wish to avoid pressures and responsibilities seeming puny, lowers expectation. That's mainly in the workplace, or if you're on a sports team and you just didn't want the pressure, you would intentionally not perform to your best ability so that nobody would expect anything from you if you're a narcissist. Patients also retell stories to glorify themselves, often leaving out blemishes and details of failure. This is done to maintain superiority among peers. Again, with that, they tend to belittle their friends or who they would associate with, so that really makes them not pleasant to be around. Overt versus covert expression. Overt is the typical pompous act and self-centered nature that narcissists show. However, covert is when these feelings are internalized and patients believe their own consciences to be terrible. We got a video. It talks a little softly, but bear with it. I think.
Hey there, Psych2Goers. Have you ever met a narcissist? What if you have, and you just don't know it? After all, narcissists are masters of deception and emotional manipulation. While only 1% of the global population is actually diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, it's a lot more common for people to display narcissistic traits and tendencies. Are you worried one of your friends might be a narcissist? Here are 7 warning signs you need to look out for. 1. They have a grandiose sense of self-importance. Does your friend talk about how great or special they are all the time? Do they go on and on about their status, their success, their beauty, or their popularity, and about how lucky you should feel to be friends with them? Arrogant, vain, and self-obsessed, narcissists are known for having an unrealistically high opinion of themselves, and they'll often exaggerate or even outright lie about their own accomplishments just to make themselves look better. 2. They have a distorted worldview. Has your friend ever done something poorly and said, "It's because I haven't been practicing, but if I did, I just know I'd be so much better than all of you"? Narcissists often rely on self-deception, excessive defensiveness, and making excuses for themselves to keep their distorted view of the world intact. They're in denial of their own flaws and weaknesses, and act out against anyone who questions their superiority. 3. They need constant praise and admiration. Narcissists always want to be the center of attention, and when they're not, you can always trust them to steal back the spotlight somehow. They're not interested in anything that doesn't have to do with them. They want you to constantly shower them with adoring compliments to keep their ego inflated. And this is why so many narcissists gravitate towards generous, kind-hearted people. They have a way of using your own good nature against you. 4. They have a strong sense of entitlement. Does your friend cut the line, doesn't wait for their turn, or takes things without asking? That's definitely a red flag. They believe that they're better than everyone else, and that they deserve to get whatever they want because of it. They're selfish, spoiled, and incredibly demanding. They expect the people around them to just do what they say and meet their every need, or else they'll lash out and throw a tantrum. 5. They have a superiority complex. Is your friend obsessed with status, and nothing short of the absolute best will ever be good enough for them? Because they believe that they're extraordinary and one of a kind, they only want to associate with other high-status people and institutions. They judge people according to their wealth, status, attractiveness, and popularity, and surround themselves only with those they see as their equals. 6. They lack empathy and remorse. Do you have a friend who doesn't care about your opinions or your feelings? Because narcissists think about themselves and only themselves, they lack the ability to feel empathy for others or remorse about their own wrongdoings. They believe everyone around them is there only to serve them and fulfill their needs, so they have no problem exploiting people for their own personal gain. They never apologize, they never feel guilty, and they never stop to consider the consequences of their actions. And 7. They bully, belittle, or mistreat others. Does your friend always have a backhanded compliment ready for you every time you share your good news with them? Do they have a habit of criticizing you and pointing out all your flaws the moment someone else pays you a compliment? That's because narcissists don't like to share the spotlight. They feel threatened by the success, confidence, and popularity of other people. They undermine your accomplishments, belittle your success, and intimidate you into feeling inferior to keep you in line. Did anyone in particular come to mind? What was your experience with them like? Let us know in the comments below. If you have a narcissist in your life, it's important that you see them for who they really are. Don't sacrifice your mental health by putting up with them and their maltreatment.
I learned that there aren't many convenient ways to treat narcissistic personality disorder, and those with it should see a therapist and attempt to rationalize their thought processes and gain a more reasonable grasp on life, because oftentimes it's just blown out of proportion. Like they feel like the world's against them, everybody's against them, and they're fighting for their lives, but really it's like when someone else looks at it, it's just a normal situation, and maybe they've just blown it up in their minds. Men being the most prominent cases of narcissistic personality disorder wasn't shocking because of the haughty nature narcissists exhibit. Throughout the study, I've gained insight, and just when you see somebody with narcissistic personality disorder, now you have the signs, and just try to work them through whatever they're going through. Any questions?
I like the slide, it's almost humorous, that you said narcissists often don't complete therapy, because if you tell them that,
Right.
like jokes
Right.
on you, they're never coming back because they can't handle that.
Yeah, it's
And I
just-
just kind of laugh, because if you've ever dealt with a narcissist in therapy, it's just not a real easy thing.
Right. And that was the most difficult part, was finding treatment options, is because I think if something even did work, they still wouldn't be open to
No, I'm interested in
accepting.
how you treat the spouse. What's the best thing for the spouse, how to manage it, because it'll end up in a fight, like an outright fight, if you challenge.
Right. Yep. They didn't give. I mean, like I said, they didn't give a set certain part of therapy. They just said seek it, and maybe after talking to people, they can get to the root of why they're that way and why they are so aggressive or outward, and maybe they can rationalize it with themselves and fix it up. Yeah, there wasn't a set thing though.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Did you want to say something?
She had asked about the spouse being narcissistic.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that sometimes spouses and other people too will manifest that narcissism in a paradoxical manner, meaning that they're more insecure and lack self-esteem, and they're trying to compensate for that by showing an abundance of confidence and specialness.
So did you just say that I'm not being narcissistic?
No.
Because that has
I did not. It's usually a compensation process. They don't really feel good.
One to know one kind of a thing.
Yeah, they don't really feel good about themselves, and they want everybody else to think that they're super people.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Mr. Dominic Vovchet. He will be talking about instinct and drive reduction theory.
So, good morning, everyone. In case you didn't hear, my name is Dominic, and today I'll be talking about drive reduction theory and instinct theory. These two theories help explain part of why we behave the way we do and what truly motivates us. I chose the Minnesota starvation study, or experiment, my bad, by Keyes, done in 1944 to 1945. This was done to explore the physical and psychological effects of prolonged starvation. Participants developed an obsessive focus on food, experienced emotional distress, and displayed a strong instinctual motivation to eat. This aligns with both theories. Their instinct to survive kicked in while hunger created a drive that fueled behavior to reduce discomfort. So, in simple terms, really, think of the pit in your stomach as drive reduction theory. The discomfort of not eating itself is what would align with drive reduction theory, while the survival instinct that is innate would be instinct theory. And there's actually no specific case study done on either one of these. You can go to the next one. So there's two psychology theorists behind these studies. You have Clark Hull, who is known for drive reduction theory. He believed we are motivated by biological needs that create discomfort. For example, hunger or stress creates a drive that we act on to reduce discomfort. And William James, on the other hand, a behavioralist, supported instinct theory because he argued that certain behaviors are automatic and unlearned, like a baby crying or animals migrating down south for winter. You can go to the next one. So what is motivation? Most people think it's like a simple push on why we do what we do, like coffee in the morning, getting you out of bed, or TikTok for some people, like me. And Spires and Ettinger actually define it as a general term for the processes that influence and direct our actions. This is important to understand because instinct and drive reduction are only two theories behind motivation. In reality, there's probably close to 24. So, everyday motivation, drive reduction explains why someone might study harder or stress. It also explains why some people work. Not everyone goes to work because they enjoy the work, obviously. There's some people that just really need the money. And instinct theory explains things like parental care or emotional responses, which often happen more naturally and automatically. So up here, you can see another great example would be exercising to be healthy. Another way to think about this is body dysmorphia, for those of you who are aware of that. It's someone who is uncomfortable in their own skin. Oftentimes, someone with body dysmorphia will go to the gym a lot and excessively to try to shape their body and to look better until they have a perfect physique. And that discomfort is displayed with drive reduction theory. So, a quick comparison of the two. Drive reduction theory is an extrinsic motivation. It focuses on external rewards that help to reduce discomfort, like studying to avoid failing. Instinct theory is intrinsic, driven by internal desires like playing a sport for fun. In short, one focuses on a need and the other is just simply natural. Let me go to the next one. There is, however, a negative impact on both of these theories. Extrinsic rewards can actually replace our natural motivation. A famous study done by Lepper found that children who loved drawing stopped when they were rewarded. It shifted their instinctual interest to a drive reduction reward system, and this shows how reward systems can interfere with natural behavior. So, to kind of put that example more into perspective, imagine you have a kid at a little kid table. You know, you give them a coloring book, you give them colored pencils, crayons, whatever it may be. And, you know, the kid obviously likes drawing, so he's going to keep wanting to draw. But let's say at the end of his drawing, you start giving him a cookie. He's going to start doing it for the cookie and not because he loves drawing itself. Throughout the research presented, it became clear to me that motivation operates on both instinctive and drive-based mechanisms. For example, innate responses such as fear or parental care can be explained through instinct theory, while tasks like studying or working under pressure align more with drive reduction theory. Many individuals may find that they are likely to act when discomfort builds, whether it's a deadline approaching or a responsibility being neglected. This tendency to delay action until discomfort arises supports Clark Cole's view of motivation through drive reduction. Ultimately, the research suggests that different people respond to different motivators, and recognizing the influence of both theories can explain everyday behavior. Any questions? I'm just that good. Okay. Works for me.
Outstanding, Dominic. All right, now we will have Mrs. Lydia DeGroot-Mooring talk about conversion disorder.
Oh, no, I have a loud voice. We can leave that microphone. Mine has a lot of clicking, just heads up. Each little thing, please.
Okay, are you going to condense it?
Yeah,
It's okay. I'll just go a little bit.
All right, so I know most of you probably do not know what conversion disorder is, so I'm going to start you out with a little story. Imagine you're dealing with a very high stressful situation. I see a police officer back there. Imagine he's about to arrest you, and just as he's about to arrest you, you go blind, or you start having a seizure, or you go deaf. That is conversion disorder. It is when we make a neurological problem into, or a mental problem into a neurological problem. I'm going to start with a case study. My case study is my favorite treatment, and it's hypnotherapy. A 21-year-old male presented with his mother, and he was showing signs of partial blindness and deafness. They introduced hypnotherapy for him, a 90-minute session. The person was told under this hypnosis that he's going to feel better. He's going to see again. He's going to see every which color that he saw around him. He's going to hear every little sound, the birds, the insects, when he woke up in the morning. When he woke up in that morning, he heard every little bird. He heard every little insect. He saw every color, every detail, and it was a success. And he hasn't had any partial deafness or blindness since. Some major points in history and theorists. In the early 1600s, it was when it was first documented, and they thought that it was demons in women's uteruses that was causing these people to become hysteric or hysteria, which is the old term for conversion disorder. In the 1700s, we learned that it was not demons. It was, in fact, our mind, and that men could get it as well. It wasn't just a women-based problem. And then in the 1900s, my man Sigmund Freud is the one that created conversion disorder term instead of hysteria. And the term was given because they were converting psychological problems into physical problems. So we're going to talk about statistics now. Of course, going back to the 1600s, you heard that they thought it had to do with the uterus. So the statistics kind of prove this too. It does happen a lot more often in women than it does in men. It's very rare to see a man have a hysterical problem or conversion disorder problem. And in America, we deal with it a lot better than in other countries, such as India. In America, we go a more scientific method, and we use the DSM-5 to diagnose patients with this. In the United States, we are more likely to go seek a professional's help, such as a psychologist, to where in India, yes, they may go see a psychologist's help and use the ICD-10, but they're more likely to go to a spiritual healer about a past life issue, thinking that's the cause of the root of the issue and where the stressors are coming from. Some treatments that we do offer is cognitive behavioral therapy, physical and occupational therapy, medication, and my personal favorite, because I feel like it's the most successful, hypnotherapy, and then group and family therapy. When I was learning a lot about this, I can read this whole paragraph, but the most interesting part is a lot of people have to jump through all of these hoops to prove that they have conversion disorder. They're not faking this. They're not just having a seizure to get out of a stressful situation. They genuinely have something wrong with them and they are scared. And to get diagnosed with this is very difficult because you have to get not only the doctor to believe you, but everyone behind the doctor to believe the doctor as well. So I know that was really short, but I have a lot of time for questions, and I did do a lot of research on this. So does anybody have any questions for me?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to tell the story.
Okay, go ahead.
So we are mental health counselors at the school, LMHCs, and I had a kiddo that I shouldn't say constantly, but would be very often that she would have situations like this. And everyone at the school got so tired of her, including myself, not being ugly, but we thought she was really not, she was trying to get out of work or get out of a situation. She was that kiddo that oftentimes had troubles. And so we thought she was having seizures, and so we'd think she'd have a seizure, she'd go to the emergency room, they would treat her for anxiety, she'd get sent home, and then 6 months later or 4 weeks later, just whatever, same thing. We started doing a bunch of research, got her sent off to, I can't remember exactly where she went, but she's seen a psychiatrist. I think she stayed for a couple of nights, like a Baker Act, and they finally diagnosed her with conversion disorder, sorry.
Oh,
so
how wonderful.
It was amazing because we knew, I don't want to be ugly, but she was a kiddo that had a lot of issues, and so, she had a lot of drama, so we oftentimes would think, oh goodness, But in the end, it was the diagnosis, and we all were like, okay, we need to do a little bit better, and, noticing these things versus thinking she was trying to get out of something.
Well, on that note, something I did learn about it was a lot of conversion disorder actually comes from people that have experienced a lot of trauma in their life, especially childhood trauma.
So much trauma.
So it is very easy to think that they're feigning it.
Well, and she was in therapy with me for at least 2 years, and oftentimes we'd have crisis and we'd get through it, but sometimes it would just be stress inducing and we wouldn't know it. I wouldn't even be on campus and it would happen, and it was a hard situation, but we finally got through it and she's doing much better, I believe. She eventually moved, but I just thought it was interesting that you said that because it's hard to diagnose.
It is.
Because we thought she was having seizures.
Yeah, and you go to the ER and there's nothing neurologically wrong with you. They'll do a brain scan and nothing's there, so it looked like you were faking it. Yes, sir.
So is the main cause overstimulation, or is there something else?
It's stress.
Stress.
Because you can be super excited and it not kick in. It's mainly stress, negative filled anxiety.
So would fear be part of that? Stress and fear?
I would think fear would be a part of that, yes. Yes, sir.
So, let's say is it possible to have the disorder, but then like the seizure aspect be like a one-time thing?
I've never heard of it being a one-time thing without some sort of treatment involved. And again, the only treatment I ever saw that was successful, and I've read a lot of case studies, was the hypnotherapy. I heard cognitive behavioral therapy can be semi-successful, but it's not guaranteed. Yes.
Just saying he thought EMDR would work, it probably would get to that point.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
With the hypnotherapy, how does that work? Is it like how the movies are and they just, I don't understand how somebody could be hypnotized.
Well, I'm not exactly sure exactly how they hypnotized them, but I do know it was the hypnosis was in front and they were sitting on the couch. They got the person into a certain environment and then they coached them through how they were going to feel in the morning. And then whenever they woke up, left, went back to sleep that night at home, woke up the next morning and was fine. That's just I just read the case study. I didn't watch a video or anything on how exactly it happened.
Sounds like it's a little bit related to PTSD as well.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of veterans can have this issue. I did read that was very common. Yes, sir.
So in the course of treatment, did they have to eliminate all the physiological issues to be able to narrow down, to be able to get to?
Yes, a lot of people before they get the diagnosis conversion disorder, they have gone through neurologists, they have gone through physical therapy, they have gone through every type of doctor you could possibly imagine before they've come down to it being conversion disorder with a psychologist. In fact,
The kiddo we were working with, actually, we even thought maybe drug induced. I mean, we tried everything, and she ended up being diagnosed with anxiety disorder, depression disorder, and then we finally went into conversion disorder.
this is one of the last disorders on the list because it's so hard to diagnose without any proof. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any physical manifestations of this that are more prominent? For example, the blindness or hearing, or is there?
It depends on the type. When I was doing my research, it depends on the type of trauma. I'm not trying to get explicit, but those that were sexually abused as children were more likely to go blind. That was the one that really stuck out to me because I thought, what is such a unique physical reaction to that particular symptom happening? Yes, ma'am.
Is it just a response, or could it be like related to a fear-based reaction? Like, if there's things that you've seen that you don't want to see, is that what causes the blindness? If you don't want to hear things, like mentally, does your brain subconsciously choose which part to cancel out?
There's not enough study done to answer that question. Because there's no proof to go which.
That's what I was getting back to, like with the trauma. If you've
Yeah.
seen horrible things, or you've heard horrible things, or felt horrible things, could it make you go seizures and be unconscious? If you just to completely dissociate, or start blindness to not be able to.
I don't want to give you 100% yes, but I'm pretty sure that would be how it would work.
It could be triggered if you were to witness someone being brutally beaten or beaten to death, it's possible that you may have a visual conversion because you don't want to see that anymore. So the blindness is a way of protecting yourself psychologically from the trauma.
I saw, yes ma'am.
I see similar between, we're just talking about this, Munchausen by proxy, and that's where these physical manifestations happen, you know.
I never put that together, but I can see what you're saying.
But it's the mind.
Yeah.
It's told or believed, and that's also stress, that's also trauma, you know, related as well. But that child actually manifested things that were poured into that.
I have one more.
One more question, and the
Yes.
last question.
Go ahead.
Is there a way someone could be like, okay, I know I went deaf or I'm blind now because I experienced this stress at this time, and they could like reverse it themselves, or is it like?
Well, that's what they try to do in cognitive behavioral therapy is they try to identify what part of trauma caused the conversion disorder and then try to help you work through that trauma to get rid of it. It's successful if they can pin it down, but a lot of times most of these people have had multiple traumas and it's really hard to pin down which one's causing it.
Thank you, Leah. All right, our next presenter is Ms. Lena Tice. She will be talking about social media versus development.
All right, so my name is Lena Tives, and as she said, I'm going to be talking about social media and its effects on adolescent development. So we all have a phone, right? Right, everyone in here has a phone. Most of us have social media. Most of us know what it's like to scroll for hours and hours to see what's on social media, good and bad, right? Okay. So my whole presentation is about how the social media affects us as people, specifically adolescents. And as you know, that social media usually has negative effects for the most part. There's some positive effects, but there's more negative than there is positive. A few of these things are it aids in depression. There's cyberbullying on the internet, explicit content, and it causes an absence from the real world. Because we've all been sitting there on our phones, scrolling, maybe not even paying attention to our phone, just sitting there watching videos. You don't know what's going on around you. You don't know what's going on your phone. You're completely checked out. And so that is what the absence from the real world would be. So I found this case study by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it covers all of the stuff that I had just said in the previous slide. There's the positive, the negative, and then there's ways to help with that. A few of the positive is it helps with being able to help with social skills, being able to communicate with other people. There's educational games that will teach a child to learn their ABCs, their colors, their numbers, all of this. But there's also negative effects. There's peer pressure, cyberbullying. There's explicit content all over the internet. And there's internet addiction, which is the worst of all because it combines every single negative effect all into one person. And there's ways that you can regulate behavior and you can try and help a child who is going through all of this stuff, because adolescents that are on the internet and see these things tend to take what they have learned online and bring it into their real world. If a child sees violent video games, violent stuff like this, they are more likely to realize that that is right, even though it's not right. They're going to think that it is because that's only what they see. In a growing, developing mind, what you put in is what you're going to get out. And there's ways that you can prevent this, not fully, but there's ways that you can help prevent, and it's by parents monitoring your child's activity online, regulating what sites you can be on, like YouTube Kids. It has videos that are just for kids. There's nothing inappropriate, no cuss words. It's just for kids rather than regular YouTube. And
I found that pediatricians can also help families and teach them how to correctly be on the internet with their children. And I found this statistics of the amount of children that are cyberbullied online, and it is 59% of children in the United States that are cyberbullied online. And there's all of this on the side you see are the different ways that kids can get cyberbullied. It's not just threats. It's name calling, spreading rumors, receiving explicit images, constant asking of where they are, what they're doing, and who they're with by someone other than a parent or legal guardian. Then there is the physical threats and having explicit images of them being spread. And one of the more important things that I've seen on the internet that most children struggle with is inappropriate content. There's no limit to what is on the internet. It is a free-for-all for anyone who has access to it. And even if you're on the most harmless site ever, a child can go from there to a different video, and it leads to porn or any kind of explicit content. And explicit content is not just porn. It's extreme curse words, violent images or videos, promoting self-harm. So, as I said, like violent video games would be considered explicit material, and there's ways that you just go down a rabbit hole to get to this explicit material. There's no censoring that's good enough. There are censoring, but it's just a page that says, see image, and it gives you a warning of what it is. But if a child is very curious, they're not going to look at that and be like, oh, it's a warning, I probably shouldn't click on that. They're going to be, oh, I can see the image, I'm going to click on that. And they're going to look at it, and they're going to be exposed to it, and they won't be able to unsee that. And, we go back to the other one. And especially with teenagers, with the nudity and inappropriate side of explicit content, teenagers are more sexually active, more sexually curious than most anybody. So if a teenager is going through puberty and they are seeing this stuff, they're going to research more into it, and they're going to go down their own rabbit hole of watching porn videos or just visiting these sites and seeing what they should not be seeing and learning what they should not be learning, or what they should be learning from a parent who can teach them a safe way rather than going online and learning all of the wrong ways. And in other countries, they are doing a lot better at regulating social media than the United States is right now. Because the United States, there's barely any limit to anything on the internet. Most everybody can be on the internet. You have to be 18 years or older to see explicit content, but like I said earlier, a lot of it you can just click see image or see video, and they don't ask you your age, they don't ask for verification, you can lie. But in other countries, like in Australia, they have just passed a law that you have to be 16 years or older to be on the internet. So anyone under 16 years old will not be allowed to be on any social media sites.
How do they regulate that?
I'm not sure. They haven't put it in place yet. So I guess it's kind of a test for right now to see. I'm sorry if I pronounce these wrong. I've tried really hard, but I'm not gonna be able to do it right. In Myanmar, which is a country in Asia, they strictly enforce media that's not offensive to race or offensive to religion and follows the law. And they are very, very strict. And if something is slightly offensive to anything, they will take it down. They will find the person who has posted it and take immediate action that way.
Myanmar is a military dictatorship that's engaged in a civil war right now.
I did not know that.
I did not know
that. And then the last one that I found was in Eritrea, Africa. The only social media allowed is news outlets, and even then there's a very slim amount of news outlets that are allowed to spread the news, because there have been a lot of accounts of these news, I guess, anchors or news people that are trying to get out the word that have been evicted from Eritrea, have been kicked out because of something that the government did not agree with. And so they took down they kicked them out. And so the people that have been kicked out are still trying to share the news, but they can't share the news because the internet in Eritrea is very strict to their place, and they cannot get past that to share what they need to share. So the government will regulate only what they want to be shared in their little area. I don't know if that makes sense. So if you have any questions, please ask me. I said that very confusing. And then I have a short video. It loads weird. There it is. Okay, amazing.
Maybe it won't show it.
It's got browse YouTube.
Watch what eggs do to your brain. Your brain is showing signs of dementia.
98% of American homes with children now have an electronic mobile device. And on average, kids 8 and under spend more than 2 hours a day looking at a screen. Is that too much? Or could there actually be developmental benefits to screen time? This is Your Brain On, where we explore how the world affects our brains and ourselves. Young brains need a lot of external stimuli to develop, particularly from birth to age 3, what's known as the critical period. It's during this time that children's neurons are making connections for fundamental skills such as vision, hearing, and language. But these needs are based on centuries of human evolution, which used to have nothing to do with screens. Consider a child watching a video instead of listening to parents read a book. It's a far different experience for the brain. Rather than kids learning to focus and imagine the story, the device presents everything to them, so certain cognitive systems become underdeveloped. And when children spend too much time in front of a screen rather than interacting with people, they can have stunted development of the frontal lobe, part of the brain that decodes social interactions. It can become more difficult to develop empathy or learn social cues like facial expressions. What's more, the stimuli from a screen can be a lot. Colors, sounds, stories, all at a super fast pace. That can be sensory overload, releasing stress hormones such as cortisol. It can also overactivate the brain's reward systems, like the addictive hormone dopamine, getting kids used to immediate gratification they wouldn't get in the real world. So most scientists and doctors agree that screen time can alter young, still-forming brains, but in some ways, that change can be positive. Take the results of one recent study that exposed young mice 6 hours daily to audiovisual stimuli similar to those found in a video game. After 10 days, the mice showed signs of hyperactivity, impaired learning, and risk-taking. But the mice also stayed calm in an environment that usually would have stressed them out. Some scientists now argue screen time can help prepare a child's brain for our increasingly fast-paced, high-stimulus world. So, screen time isn't always bad, and it isn't all created equal either. An educational letter matching game isn't the same as a violent movie. As with many things, the key is moderation. Limiting daily screen time and making sure the child can function in all of modern life, not only with screens, but in the real world too.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
Okay. And then I did my own little study, very short, very small, and it was on the 2025 TikTok ban. Now, who in here has TikTok? Who in here is on TikTok 90% of the time? Okay, maybe not 90%, but a lot of the time. Right. So I am too. I'm gonna admit that I am on it a lot. And so that affected you during the TikTok ban when it was completely shut down all over the United States. It was very hard, especially on teenagers, because they rely on their phones for entertainment nowadays, and TikTok is a main source of entertainment, watching videos, learning stuff, but not really learning anything. It's more just funny videos. makeup, stuff like that. So,
And that only lasted like 5 hours.
yeah, no, yeah. So, I personally was on a church trip when it happened, and emphasis on church trip. So when it happened, everyone around me, all the kids and youth, all the teenagers, freaked out. We forgot where we were. We forgot what was going on around us. We were learning about God, and that's where our focus should have been. Instead, we were in our rooms freaking out because we couldn't open TikTok. And like she said, it was literally only 5 hours. So I have made a video of a couple of my friends asking them how they felt during the TikTok ban, and this is their personal point of view. Maybe. No, please work.
It's banned.
Dang it.
Maybe.
Is it not working?
Because it should click on. I'm afraid to. Let me see. What'd you say? Right click, click this?
I don't know.
Hold on.
It's going to be very sad if this doesn't
Is it like a video or is it on like?
No, it's like a video.
No, so you could.
No,
That's not gonna do it. Sorry.
Okay. Well, anyways, it won't pull up. But I did ask my friends how they felt about it. My first friend, Lauren, was very, very upset about it. Every time we were on the church trip, she would try and click on it. It wouldn't open. She would turn and look at me and be like, I can't open TikTok. And I was like, yeah, it's because it's banned. And she was just freaking out the whole time. Every time she would open her phone, she would go to click on it, and she wouldn't be able to open it. And then I had my other two friends. They also didn't like the TikTok ban, but the main thing that they all agreed on is they realized that it wasn't actually that long of a ban, and they did overreact a little bit, even though in the moment they thought it was the biggest deal. They thought everything was going to go, like, everything was not going to work out. They don't know how they were going to survive without it. But they realized they overreacted, and they were okay after that. And so, my personal opinion, I think social media does have its pros and cons. It does have more cons than it does pros. But like the video said earlier, in moderation, it can be okay. Like, if you set a child down, give them an hour a day or something like that to learn educational games rather than just browse on random sites. Give them something educational to learn. And then also go behind that and you teach them yourself. You read to them, talk to them, play with them. Don't just hand them an iPad and send them on their way. Because, like I said in the very beginning, when you just hand them something and let them go wherever, they can go from place to place to place and start good and end bad. And then it's on you to try and reverse that, and it's very hard to reverse what they've already learned. And then that is all. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Given the whole fact is the way that your questions were up there, which one do you feel is more important? The individual or parents being able to get onto the child's, say, tablet and put in parental restrictions, or do you think that it should be like the government control, such as what happened with the TikTok ban?
I think it should be more parental control, because while TikTok's not the greatest, there were some good benefits to it. Like it helped people learn stuff. There were aspects that you could learn on there, and there were small businesses on there that were getting out to the world. So I don't think the government should have like over control, but if there is like, I don't know how to word this.
Sort of like with the news media from.
Right. Because it shouldn't get to that point.
Right.
I think it should be the parents regulating more than anything.
All right. Any other questions? Great job. Finally, we have our Miss Alexandria Bade, who will be talking about premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Hi, I'm Alexandria, and I'm going to talk about premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD. PMDD is a disorder that affects many women during the week before menstruation, causing severe mental and physical symptoms. In this case, a 42-year-old woman was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Her symptoms were depressive episodes, low self-esteem, high amounts of unjustified guilt, anxiety, and irritability, which she was given lithium for. Unfortunately, this caused her symptoms to significantly worsen. She was eventually diagnosed with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and within 2 years of treatment, she was free of symptoms. Johns Hopkins Medicine is a leading hospital and program in studies of PMDD. They have not yet identified a concrete cause for PMDD. However, they suspect a serotonin deficiency due to an adverse reaction to premenstrual hormone changes to be the culprit. Anyone can develop PMDD, but some people may be at a higher risk, such as people with a family history. Many women have a hard time getting a PMDD diagnosis because of its difficult diagnosis requirements. Even after going through the process, some women still get misdiagnosed. Around 7% of women have received a diagnosis, but there are more who have not been able to get there. Some of the extreme symptoms that set PMDD apart from other menstrual disorders include intense hopelessness, anxiety, extreme moodiness, and irritability and anger. In the UK, one of the most common treatments for PMDD is cognitive behavior therapy, while in the US, this is not often a recommended treatment, and it's very difficult to find sources that will tell you that this is even an option for this disorder. One common treatment in both the UK and the US is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs. The most common treatments for PMDD are antidepressants, birth control, nutrition supplements, herbal remedies, diet and lifestyle adjustments, and cognitive behavior therapy. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder has a large impact on the lives of many women worldwide. It can cause women to lose relationships and even their jobs. It is incredibly frustrating to see the lack of research done on women's health in general, but especially disorders like this one and other ones such as PMS, and I know there's another one, but I cannot remember the name for it right now.
Okay. Any questions? No?
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Let's give everybody a hand again because it was such a fabulous presentation. They did a wonderful job. Okay. Very good. Very good. Very good.
Thank you, and I promise I won't make this too long. I know we've been here a long time today. But
I'm good. Okay, you good?
But my name is Matt Standish. I am a retired Air Force First Sergeant. And if there's one point I can make to all of you, you've been hearing about a lot of different conditions and disorders and problems that people are having all over this country. The thing to remember is there is help out there, okay? All these different agencies and stuff that you've been in contact with today, you know, in different places, there's loads of help out there for people, whether it's a mental health disorder or whatever. I am very, very privileged that I get to work for a very special office of the VA. And it's a federally funded office called the Vet Center. And what we do is something really beautiful. We're not typical VA because we don't have anything to do with the medical side. We don't deal with hospitals or clinics, and we don't do benefits or claims either. What we do is we provide counseling primarily for PTSD. We work with veterans. And because we're so independent from all the rest of the VA, we don't just see veterans. I mean, even the veterans that come to us don't have to be in the VA system at all. But we also are allowed to see active duty members, National Guard, reserves, and we are the only office in the VA that regularly sees family members as well. That's any family member, even a boyfriend, girlfriend, kids. Because, you know, PTSD can really destroy an entire family. So what vet centers do, and this is a nationwide program, there's over 300 vet centers all across the United States, is we're all basically the same, is we provide a safe place where a veteran or a troop who won't talk to anybody, they can go to any vet center in the country, pretty much just walk in the door. They get connected to a licensed professional counselor who may also be a veteran themselves. Then most importantly, and our number one feature, this is the way we've been for over 45 years, and that's that anybody who goes to a vet center, nobody will ever know, okay, not even the VA. So it's an extremely confidential service. We deal with PTSD from things like service in a combat zone, which I'm one of those. I got to serve in Iraq in 2005. Actually, I had the best time because it was all about taking care of my troops. It was actually beautiful. Rockets were a little annoying, but our insurgents were terrible shots. They couldn't hit anything. And the best part was I brought all of my troops home safe. But combat service, sexual trauma, military sexual trauma, medics and corpsmen dealing with combat casualties, National Guard troops who deployed to like a natural disaster site where they're taking bodies up, you know, Coast Guard who've been out in the waters doing drug interdictions. There's all kinds of things. So we love what we do at the vet center. It's a beautiful program. Our big problem is nobody knows about it. We are the best kept secret in the VA. The program's been around for over 45 years, started by Vietnam vets in the 70s. So the big help I need is if you know anybody you think needs our help, tell them about us. Okay, my vet center covers Bay, Gulf, Washington, Calhoun, Holmes, and Jackson counties. And there's vet centers all over the place. There's one in Tallahassee, one in Okaloosa County, Pensacola, 26 just in the state of Florida. So if you know anybody needs our help, please come, you know, let them know that we're here for them. My table's still set up in the other room, so if you want to come grab a brochure, you're more than welcome to. But thank you for what you all do. You're all going to be dealing with some veterans at some point in your lives, too. So thank you for looking after my brothers and sisters for me, okay? Thanks.
Mr. Standish, is there a cost associated with the service? Is there a cost associated with the service?
Oh, yeah, no, there's no cost. Vet centers is completely free. We also never file insurance either, so if they have insurance, we don't care about that. But thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very quickly, Rusty Holmes with SEDNet. I work directly with, through a grant from the Department of Education and work with the local school systems on emotional, behavioral, and mental health disorders. And all we do training and technical assistance. It was great to talk to a bunch of you guys today at the table. Christina Skito, Jessica Bay, and let's see, Tiffany Oliver. You guys, I have a calming kit for you before you leave, so if you'll come by my table, and all you guys were randomly chosen, you know, to get those. If you know of a student that has emotional, behavioral, or mental health disorders, there's always a system to help them, you know, as part of our local school system. A lot of you guys are going to work with schools and you don't even realize it, especially if you're going into mental health, because that's where a lot of our mental health coverage is now provided to students throughout the day. So please make sure that you know your support systems in your schools. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
My name's Kayla Williams. I work for Department of Children and Families, Community Development. We have 6 counties, which is all Circuit 14. That's Washington, Holmes, Jackson, Bay, Calhoun, and Gulf. We work closely with our community partners trying to find resources for all of our clients in our counties, such as I work close with Share Your Heart, which provides food bags. We have preachers and chaplain who go and deliver the bags to the families that are needed, and I also make the deliveries as well. But we're just trying to better our community for all of our residents.
Thank you. Everyone had an opportunity to say a little, I'm sorry.
I think I'm the last one. I'm Christy Ford. I'm with Hope Springs Counseling Group. It's a mental health counseling practice here in Marion. If you know of anyone needing services, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Great job on your presentations. That was awesome.
Dr. Ford,
Congratulations.
Dr. Ford, are there